Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. Today we'll be focused on the lives of some of the Carolina's finest emergency services personnel. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're in Florence visiting with Horry County's Public Safety Director, Paul Whitten. Paul, thanks for being with us.
Thanks. Appreciate you letting me be here.
Absolutely. Today, as you know, we're on Palmetto Street at Fire Station 1. All week we've been visiting with emergency services personnel from all over the Carolinas, and we've got emergency services directors both from Horry County, Robeson, and Florence County today. So thank you so much for your time. How long have you been in Horry County?
I've been in Horry County about 5 years, and in my current position as a public safety director for a little over 2 right now.
Okay. Are you an Horry County native?
No, I'm originally from Charleston. I came a roundabout way to get here. 10 years in the United States Army, then several years in Columbia working with the State Emergency Preparedness Division, and then within Horry County as Emergency Preparedness Director, and then got promoted to Public Safety Director about 2 years ago.
Is this something you've been thinking about as a youth, Paul?
It's something that I kind of got into with the emergency management, and I found that I really enjoyed it, working with hurricanes, and it kind of expanded from there. So it's something that I really enjoy. I feel it's really important to our community.
What prompted your involvement? Was there anything in particular, any occasion that happened in youth or in the Army? Or?
Well, actually, it started for me in 1992 when I was deployed to South Florida following Hurricane Andrew. I was part of the United States Army's response there and went down there and spent several months working down in South Florida after Hurricane Andrew, and kind of migrated into the hurricane world after that and did that for the state for several years.
Are there any planning efforts in particular that have been initiated over the last 12 months or since?
We have, within Horry County, we've started some planning efforts, especially working with DHEC and some other organizations, talking about the weapons of mass destruction. We've initiated some planning efforts, and especially with them really looking at some of the impact of a bioterrorism. I think that we've got a lot of plans in place that we're capable of handling a lot of situations, but the bio one is one that's really a new component. And so we've initiated some actions to make sure that we've thought about it and done the planning on the front end.
As the public safety director, you can obviously sit back and gauge about as well as anyone the role of local government in any potential terrorist attacks. What do you perceive as the role?
Well, it's interesting because we always, you talk a lot about terrorist attacks and you talk a lot about major events, and the local governments, whether it's here in South Carolina or wherever, local government is the key. It's the first responder. It's the one that's there no matter what. We always think that, yes, the federal government, the FBI, Centers for Disease Control, all these other folks have a major role. But every time, no matter where it is in the United States, local government will be the first on the scene. And we have a tremendous responsibility that we're able to do that and take some steps early on to start mitigating the impact of some of these events. So it's something that we deal with. We deal with it on a daily basis. And I always tell people that within public safety, it's not just police, it's not just fire or ambulance crews, it's 911 officials, it's planners in emergency management, it's a whole variety of people. It's a community. It's a team effort all the way from the individuals and families all the way through the governmental employees. So it's a team effort to make it successful.
Well, I want to stress to viewers, if you're just tuning in, we are at Fire Station 1 here in the city of Florence on East Palmetto. We're visiting with the Public Safety Director from Horry County, Paul Whitten. There's quite a bit of potential noise in the background, but Paul's got some exciting things to tell us about activities going on in Horry County. You can hear this. Is there a particular activity that happens in getting all public safety officials together, or is there something that you do on a regular basis to get?
One of the programs that I've initiated within Horry County Public Safety is we're meeting together every other month with our public safety leadership. And what we're trying to accomplish there is in my opinion, we do a lot of things very well within our police department and our fire departments, but I want to make sure that we're capable of dealing with that multi-departmental response.
Right.
What happens when it's not just a fire scene or just a police scene, and we've got fire, police, ambulances, environmental services, all these folks working together to a common goal. I want to make sure that we know each other and know how we all work and make sure we're working towards the common goal. And knowing somebody beforehand is a lot better than meeting them on an emergency scene. That's not the best time to get introduced to your coworkers.
No doubt. What a great idea. In case of a suspected terrorist attack, what's the chain of responsibility for coordinating emergency services?
Well, the first thing is always to dial 911 and report it and get the process started. We have people that will respond. We have within Horry County, we have a hazardous materials team. We have people that are trained. We have police officers with the county police that are capable of looking at this, and if the situation warrants it, we have other resources available. That's where the state, with SLED, highway patrol in some cases, all the way up to FBI, DEA, Centers for Disease Control, DHEC. There's a lot of agencies. The key is to get it started and for us to recognize it. And that's one of the things that we're working on, is make sure we identify it.
And almost all those agencies really have to go through you. I mean, they have to contact you. You're the first person they're contacting.
Right, and that's the key, is we have to, as a first responder, the local government, we're the ones who call them. So we have to identify it, and we have to make smart decisions to know who to contact and how to get them here and be able to express the situation accurately. So it's a big team effort, and it's the role of local government can't be overstated. It is just such a critical role.
Truly, truly, you've expressed that very well. Is there any accomplishment, Paul, over the last year that you're most proud of?
I'm very proud of the fact that within Horry County, we have recently merged our fire and EMS departments into a single organization, and had a lot of success with that, being able to push services out and expand services and capabilities. And I think that's one of the ones that it's a 3-year, at least a 3-year process, probably longer than that. We're only 1 year into it, but I still think that that's one of the best things that we've done, and I think that we're seeing tremendous benefits from that already, and we'll see even more in the future.
If you weren't the public safety director for the county, what do you think you'd be doing?
I think I'd still be in emergency management. I guess one of my roots is in hurricanes, and when I did that at the state, I was a hurricane program manager for several years. I enjoyed the hurricane business. I think that I would be in the public safety arena in some component, just because it's very rewarding, and it's always a challenge, and it's never dull. It's something dynamic and challenging every day.
Visiting with Paul Whitten, 3 years in emergency management preparedness, a tenure in the Army, visiting the after effects of Hurricane Hugo, a man who's committed to bringing everyone together under the common goal of turning around a potentially horrible situation. Paul, thanks so much for traveling up here to be with us today.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Paul Whitten. Carolina people, we'll be right back. Just 1 second. Good morning. Welcome back to Carolina People. This week we're visiting with emergency services personnel from all over the Carolinas. And today we're at Fire Station 1 here in the city of Florence, visiting with the Emergency Management Director, Dusty Owens. Dusty, thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Are you a PD area native?
Yes, actually, I'm a native of Florence.
Okay. And you have, how long have you been in emergency management involvement?
I've been in the field of emergency management for a little over 10 years. Really started in '92, did 5 years with the state emergency management department up in Columbia, and then was fortunate enough to be able to come back home here to Florence and take over the department locally.
So was there something in particular that happened that encouraged you to get involved with emergency services?
Well, actually, no. I think emergency services really found me. My first career was in the military. And after leaving the military, I was kind of searching for a job, something to do, and had several people that pointed me toward emergency management and said that with my background that I would be a good fit. And I'd never really considered it until that point, and now that I'm here, I can't imagine myself doing anything else.
Dusty, in Florence County, can we just talk for a second about the chain of response for coordinating emergency services? Obviously, viewers, we have viewers in Horry County, viewers in Robeson and Scotland County. Counties handle it differently, but in Florence County, we could talk for a second about how the chain of response.
Certainly. Obviously, for a small type incident, it's handled by the local jurisdiction, whether that's your local fire department, local EMS, or law enforcement. When an event exceeds the capability of that department to respond, or it affects multiple jurisdictions, then really it becomes my responsibility as the emergency management director for the county to coordinate the overall response. Here in Florence County, we actually have 12 separate fire departments. We have a county EMS, and we have really actually four individual rescue squads that supplement that, as well as 9 municipal police departments, and 1 county sheriff's department. So there's a multitude of agencies that could be involved in any of those.
Obviously, viewers, you can tell we're at Fire Station 1 here in the city of Florence. A lot going on, as you know, here in the background. Is there a main responsibility that you have, Dusty, as it relates to activities with, is there something you do to bring all the public safety officers together?
Actually, there is. Our department serves really 3 roles, and all of them help to bring in the various response organizations. The one that we're most commonly associated with is strictly what we would call emergency preparedness.
Okay.
For a large event, such as a hurricane or a terrorist attack, we run the County Emergency Operations Center, which is where all the various departments come together, and it really serves as a command post, per se. In addition to that responsibility, within Florence County, we have a centralized dispatch system. Any 911 call anywhere in Florence County from any of our municipalities would come to that one central location, and that's our department. From that department, we would dispatch via our radio system any of those response organizations that I mentioned earlier. And of course, the third responsibility is we also control and manage the radio communications for the county. We're very fortunate here in Florence County to have what we consider a state-of-the-art 800 megahertz radio system, so that all of our responders can communicate with each other through shared radio network.
800 megahertz, so all responders?
All responders within Florence County, all of the various departments are on the same system.
That's spectacular. Were there programs that were implemented before 9/11 that deal with getting ready for attacks, whether they're on the magnitude of that level? Or
well, actually there were. I think one of the common misconceptions is that 9/11 caught everyone by surprise and there was no preparedness in place prior to that, and that's actually not the case. There were a lot of initiatives at the federal level and at the state level, as well as at local communities, to prepare. Really, 1995 was kind of a watershed event. During 95, we had the Oklahoma City bombing and, of course, the sarin gas attack in Tokyo. And those events really drove home that terrorist events could occur here, both domestic and international, and that chemical or biological agents could be used. One federal initiative that is really interesting is the Center for Domestic Preparedness. That's located at the former Fort McClellan Army base in Anniston, Alabama. When that base was closed, the federal government took over a portion of it and set up the Domestic Preparedness Center. And we send firefighters, EMS personnel, law enforcement personnel there at federal expense to receive specific training in chemical protection and terrorist activities and things like that. To date, we've sent about 42 first responders from Florence County, and we have more on the waiting list.
42. How important, Dusty, is how important is the need for communication between response teams?
Well, it's really critical, and in any incident during the after-action comments, what you hear repeatedly is that we need to be able to communicate. We've got to talk. During the World Trade Center response following that attack, that's one of the key elements, was the communications breakdown. And so we put a lot of emphasis in our shared 800 megahertz system here to make sure that everybody who's a first responder, simply by using the same radio and changing talk groups, much like changing the channel on your television set, can talk to whomever they need to, whether that's fire, rescue, EMS, or law enforcement.
That's wonderful. I was trying to think, there's one thing in particular that we wanted to talk about, the COBRA team here in Florence County, and actually we just got a couple seconds. I was wondering if maybe you could stay around for another segment to talk to us.
Be glad to.
Okay. We'll be right back with more Carolina People coming up next. back to Carolina People. This morning we're visiting with the Emergency Management Director of Florence County, Dusty Owens. Dusty, thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We were talking a minute ago about the COBRA.
Right.
Could you tell viewers a little bit about COBRA?
Certainly, I'd be glad to. COBRA is an acronym that stands for Chemical, Ordnance, Biological, and Radiological. It is a response team that's probably one of the most visible initiatives here in South Carolina since September the 11th. The teams are funded with federal grant money, and the teams consist of local personnel. The teams are geographically spread across the state based on population. There are 3 what we call advanced teams, and they're located in Charleston, Richland, and Greenville. There are subsequent to that what we call basic teams. We have 11, and they're based in counties that have population greater than 100,000, which means that both Florence County and Horry County here in the PD are the 2 counties with COBRA teams. And the teams, as I said, are funded as far as equipment with grants from federal money made available post-September the 11th. The concept behind the team is that the basic team would be the first on scene in the event of a terrorist attack. They would initiate the first response, whether that is evacuation of citizens, decontamination, monitoring, those types of things that need to go on. Subsequent to that, the advanced team, of course, would be en route. For the PD, our advanced team would be coming from Charleston. They would arrive on scene to assist the basic teams until additional aid from the state and the federal government could arrive.
And you said this is federally funded.
Yes, the equipment is federally funded. The team consists of personnel who are local, so the funding mechanism would be either volunteers from our organic first response agencies within the county, or local industry or something of that magnitude. But funding is for personnel is a local issue. Equipment purchase, which is the high dollar cost really, is coming from federal grants.
Okay. Dusty, what can the community, whether in Florence County or in other counties, but particularly here in Florence County, what do you think the community can do to help prepare for an emergency, whether the emergency is natural or unexpected? I mean, absolutely unexpected, like what happened a year ago.
I think that one of the keys, and this is something that we stress quite often, and we call it a multi-hazard approach to disasters.
Okay.
We don't plan for just one type of event and then over here plan for another type of event. What we find is that many of the things we do relate to all types of events. And we stress that to the public, that they need to be prepared to be on their own to sustain themselves for the first 72 hours, whether that's following a terrorist attack, whether that's following a hurricane or whatever. And we use that 72-hour figure because that's about how long it's going to take to get federal response in.
Right.
And by being able to sustain themselves, what we're talking about is food, clothing, prescription medication, those types of things, water that they would need for themselves and their family for 72 hours. There's a number of different places they can get copies of personal plans that would outline some of these items, flashlights, all those types of things. You can get them from your local Red Cross. You can get them from the Emergency Preparedness Office. But we encourage citizens to go ahead and get those lists and put together their personal disaster supply kit.
Dusty, over the last year, is there any accomplishment in particular that you're most proud of?
Well, I think the effort from all of the departments to work together has just really been great. There's always in the emergency field camaraderie among the various disciplines, fire, law enforcement, EMS, and there's also a little bit of a rivalry. I think following September the 11th, most first responders have viewed this as an attack on, first of all, our nation, and second of all, on themselves. And we all feel that we lost brother responders in some of the attacks. And so I'm really excited about the teamwork that's been more evident now than even before the attack.
And you think that showed up in cross-training as well?
I do. I believe it's shown up in our exercises, in our training, and actually in our response to real events. And One thing that is important to remember is that, again, with the concept of a multi-hazard plan, as I said, what we do in one event translates to another. And for example, here in Florence County, about 2 years ago, we had an Amtrak derailment in Lake City, which caused our emergency services personnel to do treatment of a large number of casualties, sheltering on the spot, transporting those casualties to local hospitals. Those skills that we used would be the same skills we would use in a terrorist attack. And I think there's just a heightened sense of this is really important and we need to be prepared to respond quickly.
Dusty, if you were not the emergency management director for Florence County, what do you think you'd be doing?
Don't have a clue.
Really?
Yeah, I really can't picture myself doing anything other than this as a career. Nothing else would really appeal to me. I enjoy the excitement of it. I enjoy the sense of being able to help my community. This is my home. I have family here, so I really can't picture myself doing anything else.
Real quick, is there an overarching image? I know, hate to get back to 9/11, but is there an overarching image that you took out from that day? Let's say an actual day, 352 days ago, an actual image that you took out from that?
Well, I guess watching it unfold on the television was just traumatic, and at that point you had or at least I did, a mix of emotions, one of which was a desire really to get home and just hug my family and kids. But looking back now with a little bit of perspective, I think one of the most meaningful events for me is the photograph of the 3 firefighters raising the flag. There's just any number of photographs that catch the sense of disaster, the sense of fear. But for me, that signifies a couple of things. One, that this was not just an attack against firefighters or against New York City. It was an attack against the United States. And in the midst of it, in the midst of the rubble and the chaos and the confusion, what you saw were guys raising the flag and working together. And I think, to me, that's probably the most memorable event and image.
I think that sticks out in many people's mind. 10 years in the field, emergency management director for Florence County, Dusty Owens. Dusty, thanks again for being with us.
I enjoyed it.
Stay tuned. We'll be back with more Carolina People. Thank you for tuning in to Carolina People this morning. We truly want to thank our host, Fire Station Number 1 here in the city of Florence.